Good morning, everybody. Wow, what a great day. It's actually going to be warm today. It's amazing because a year ago we had like feet and feet and feet of snow, and now it's like nary even a cold weather to even warrant snow if there was any clouds in the skies. It's going to be like 50 degrees today. So, I'm just dumbfounded. I'm like, I'm wanting a white Christmas, so hopefully I'll get it. Anyways, uh, those of you who are on Jilly Juice, you're going to find that your emotional reactions to all of these conspiracy stuff, which I'm not saying doesn't happen. Okay, so there are some conspiracies that I would say, yes, there is some element of truth to them. Okay, there's always an element of truth to all of these different conspiracies. But we have very mutated people in our society that will then loop and take their experiences and assume that's what happens everywhere. Okay? It's interesting. I've been learning about, the whole CPS stuff, and I've had people that used to be on my Facebook totally take the CPS agency on and really, they have a platform railing against CPS because of their own personal situation. Well, lately within the last, and of course tied to human trafficking, right? But lately I've been looking at the news and we're seeing things, like, Jeffrey Epstein and the Clinton stuff and all these other, like George Bush and all that is coming to light in the mainstream. No, they're probably not going to get the book thrown at them. They're going to probably buy their way out of the punishment, but all of this stuff is coming to light. Okay, so now that we know that there are mutated people in our society, and a lot more considering the fact that we have the vaccine schedule being upped, we have more negative elements in our society. We have so many people living on top of each other because areas are uninhabitable. So you're going to be exposed to pathogens and things that you probably ordinarily would not be exposed to. And that is going to do a number on a system. It's going to create mutations and behavioral issues in adults as well as children. And some of these, children are going to exhibit behaviors that you're going to see criminal activity in adults later on. Okay, so that's heavily out there in the population. You don't need to be in a government agency to be mutated. Mutations are happening across all lines. Mutations do not discriminate. So when you have such a mutated public, you've got to have a countering force. You've got to have a little bit of faith in the system that when someone sees something that goes on or knows that there is abuse in a household, whether it's incest, molestation, egregious pet abuse, or child abuse, there's going to be somebody there that's going to take that child or that pet out of harm's way. We have so many extremists in right now our society who are mutated, who do these things, right? And then who are also mutated that think the government is the one that's doing these things. And then guess what? That animal, that child is still in harm's way because you have taken a very extreme line. So the irony around these extremists around who are against CPS are also putting children in harm's way too. That's what I'm saying, is that we have not gotten to a balancing point of our society to be able to differentiate between right and wrong, for one, and number two, between, logic and emotion. What can you control? What can you not control? Can you differentiate between hearsay and rumors and fact and fiction and all of that? No, it's like it's complete, like the lines are so blurred, it's insane. Okay, so what triggered all of this was because I ran across an article of this couple that decided to have a baby at home. Okay, so they're part of the anti-vax world, the anti-government world, the anti-hospital world, and all of this, right? So they're part of all that. And they decide that they know better. They know the body better because what? They've been watching all of these groups. They've been getting advice from these people who don't really know about their body. They just know about, oh yeah, I have a baby at home. I don't want them to get vaccinated. I know herbal remedies. I know all these holistic things. And this is where we're going to get in trouble. And this is where I kind of understand why it is that people were calling CPS on people in my group, okay? Because there are people that don't understand the human body. They don't understand balance. They don't understand how to, to really determine what is good, because they're watching, the activism. They're watching maybe some good results and maybe completely ignoring, some of the questionable results. And so they've now taken upon themselves, where they don't have any second opinion or any other presiding authority, right? And they decide to do something on their own without really exemplifying. And there isn't any model out there where someone is able to have a kid on their own and be completely independent of the system. And if there is a model, it's not mainstreamed. And so, there's no way for anyone to know if this person knows what the hell they're doing. So they have a kid at home, and then one of their family members was afraid for them. So they said, hey, if just do this one favor, bring in the paramedics just to make sure that everything is okay. So they did that. As soon as they let those paramedics in, and the paramedics made a request, a suggestion, okay? Now, it could have ended to where, they made the request, say, hey, you need to take your baby to the hospital. We should take the baby to the hospital just to make sure everything's okay and make sure it got whatever it needs, right, based upon the paramedics training, and the couple refused. And so then subsequently, when the paramedics left, they called CPS. And then that is when everything went downhill from there with that family. Okay, because now, now they got the kids taken away. And I looked up, and this was back like in 2015, and I looked up the updates, and I found that they're still fighting. And actually one of them is in jail because they were trying to lock the caseworkers in an elevator. Okay, that's the father. So they're still fighting that battle. The kids are still taken away. The reason being is because they didn't have the logic in their head to figure out. Because the reason why, when CPS came in, why they got taken away is because CPS came in, right, from the paramedics, and they came in, took a look at the babies, and they saw that there was eczema. And the mother was treating that eczema with some kind of herbal topical. Now, we know when you're using herbal topicals, not all herbs are created equal. There are some herbs that are a lot more egregious, a lot more toxic, a lot more aggressive than other herbs. Okay, it's not like she was using coconut. She was using some kind of herb like calendula or some other type of essential oil. And wouldn't, take the recommendation of steroids. I'm not saying that steroids was something that you should be using, because we know that I use steroid cream and it pushed that pathogen that I had when I had a rash back into my system. And then I went through a healing symptom when I was on my protocol a couple of months ago. But this is how the system works. This is what they recommend. They do a universal across the board, cater to the lowest common denominator. If you don't know what you're doing, we're going to apply a universal protocol to everybody. Okay? Because here's what the thing is that they triggered the system to come into their house. They caved into pressure. If they hadn't caved into the pressure of bringing in a paramedics or anybody else, or let's say they did, and then CPS was called and CPS came out and said, hey, we make these recommendations and you're using herbal remedies and we want you to use steroids because now we're the state, we're coming in telling you because now this got triggered. They should have said, okay, yeah, sure. We'll use the steroid cream. We'll do what you say. Make them all happy. Obviously, the baby's not going to die from steroid cream. And you can always come back from that. But not everybody knows how to do that, right? So they think they're going to die from freaking steroid cream. So guess what they do? They say, no, we're not going to do that. That's what they said. And that's what triggered then the baby to be taken away, because they refused medical care because there was an obvious issue on that baby. There was eczema. Now, eczema is not as bad as other stuff, but eczema is a skin condition that when it does get out of hand, it's very uncomfortable. And so what the system does is that they do temporary fixes. Doesn't mean that it's really good for you, but they do temporary fixes so that way that the person or the baby isn't in pain or isn't uncomfortable. Now, we know that the system doesn't recommend things that give you a long-term health. They do short-term stuff, but that's how the system works. Once you trigger the system, you are now subject to the system's terms and conditions. If you don't want to be subject to the system's terms and conditions, you don't trigger the system in the first place, or you trigger them in ways of which you are the one that's left in the power position. And this is what these activists who are so freaking emotional. Yes, I know there are people that have been dealt with CPS and foster homes and dealt with the system, and maybe it didn't go their direction, or it wasn't a very pleasant experience. But, you know, there's probably countless stories. But here's the thing. There are also countless stories of kids that are getting abused in homes that need to be taken out. And some of these kids are put into relatives' homes. They're not just disappeared forever. And so when Ashley Reed was commenting on that thread that me and Misty were discussing and was talking about her personal experience, your personal experience is not unique, but it's not also universal either. That's where we have to differentiate. And right now, those who are activists, who are still listening to all these conspiracy stuff about the Illuminati and the child trafficking and human trafficking, we know all that exists, but it's out of your control. If you don't want to trigger somebody else telling you what to do, then you better make sure you have a handle on your kids, on yourself, your child's education, your child's health. Because I'm watching these, these anti-vax, right? These anti-vax campaigns, and they're all just, and I'm looking at some of these articles where this kid was never vaccine injured. It was just, a picture that someone stole from another person's Facebook and then put in a different caption. So let's say a kid was suffering from disease and the vaccines were never, ever at all even, said in a caption on someone's Facebook, but someone stole their picture of their kid in the hospital for whatever reason, and then they post a caption saying, "Oh, this person's kid is vaccine injured," and then they circulate that in the anti-vax community, and then everyone's all up in arms going, oh my God, vaccine injury, right? So there's another, creating perception, manufacturing perception. But if you are anti-vax and you are anti-government, you are anti-system, you have to do things strategically, not emotionally. You have to recognize where you have your power and where you don't have the power. As soon as you walk into a doctor's office, as soon as you utilize a government service, whether it's a paramedic, the fire department, the police department, any type of service in your community, you are subject to everything that they recommend because you utilize that service, whether or not you paid for it or not. You walk into a hospital doing a well baby checkup, regardless if it's a naturopathic, homeopathic, osteopath, or an allopathic. They have every right to recommend and report you if you don't take their advice, because you've already demonstrated that you have no idea what you're doing because you're walking into that office to begin with. People that don't know what they're doing, they need mommy and daddy. And when you don't take advice from mommy and daddy, yeah, you have no recourse. So that's why I don't do personal consultations at all. You know why? Because either you understand my information or you don't, and you go back into the system and have mommy and daddy look after you. But people who do Jilly Juice will read my information and they will get it, and they will figure out how to navigate into a system that has to cater to the lowest common denominator. And the lowest common denominator is a universal people out there that don't know what they're doing. And they say, hey, everybody gets vaccines. Everybody has to get, use steroid cream. They have to take prescription drugs because all FDA approved, because they know that predominantly the public, if they look at your drug history, they know that you have never used this drug before. So, you're probably not going to have it, it's not going to not work on you. And if it doesn't, then, they work with something else. And I'm not condoning that's right. I'm just condoning that's how the system works. The FDA has a purpose, because you don't want to be taking drugs from a guy that is cutting it with fentanyl or some other ammonia or bleach or anything else under his kitchen sink. CPS has a purpose. Yes, there are mutated people in CPS, but there's also mutated people in the population that trigger CPS. So you are not the one to determine whether or not CPS should be going to this person's house. You absolutely don't know what the hell you're doing or talking about. You're not the agency that someone's calling saying, hey, my son is abusing his kid. I don't have the capability of taking care of my son's baby. We need to get this kid out of this house and given to another relative or something. Because there are when you have a kid in our society, you just trigger the system, but you can trigger the system in a way that is more empowering to you than disempowering. Having a baby at home with midwifery and everything goes well, okay, you don't bring in a paramedic or somebody in there, right? Unless you absolutely have to. And then you send away for that delayed birth certificate. You have witnesses that sign that, and then you trigger the homeschool. Okay, and then you homeschool your child. And then you give your child every opportunity to say, hey, you can join the system if you want. And there are some career fields where you have to have certain vaccines. If you go into the health and wellness field, into the medical field, yeah, you're going to have to get vaccines. As soon as you start studying the health and wellness and all that, where you get licensed by the state, yes, you're going to have to trigger that system. And then you're going to have to go and get all these vaccines. But hopefully you're doing J-juice, okay? And whatever vaccines you get is not going to completely take you down. Because I'm sure, because I know when someone that was trying to be a temp here in Ohio was trying to work for the hospital, and they wanted to see their whole vaccine schedule. And they actually got a blood test, and so that they can find the antibodies in the body for those vaccines, because there's markers on these antibodies. That's how they know you're vaccinated or not with certain diseases, because you have the disease in your body. You have the antibodies. But one day, your body is going to, your immune system is going to get lowered. You're not going to have as many antibodies. And then those viruses and things will trigger and become very prominent, and you won't have enough antibodies to fight it off because, you have mutations already that settled in your body that was never reversed. So this is where I totally am not thrilled with any of the activists on my page when it comes to CPS, because there's mutated people in the public, in the population that need parenting classes. There are mothers that leave their kids to their own devices. Okay? No, I'm not saying that it is the best way to have somebody else tell you what to do, but if you have not exemplified competency in your own health, in your child's health, or in any way else, then yeah, you deserve to have somebody guide you through this process. But if you demonstrate competency in your own health, and you demonstrate competency in your child's health, and you're not utilizing holistic supplements and all of these different herbal remedies on your child, if you are using supplements and if you are using herbal remedies, then you have demonstrated incompetency, because you still don't know how to take care of your kid. Because how does the system know that you know what to do with these supplements, or what to do with these these topicals? Some of these stuff is very toxic to a child's body, to a child's skin. I'd seen a mom on Facebook Live, shoving onions down their baby's throat. I had to say something, saying, oh my God, those onions are toxic. Stop it. But then I understand on the flip side, this is where I understand where people in my group were wondering if we were shoving salt down the baby's throat. We weren't doing that, but people were taking that to the extreme. But I understand why people did call CPS, because they didn't know. I mean, this is so new, cabbage water and salt and all of that is totally new. So this is why I don't do personal consultations. This is why you must read the book and understand, lacto-fermented cabbage. This is why you must use my discussion forum for any questions or support. Because it's not very easy using my site. It takes forethought to write out. It's not very instant gratification, low-hanging fruit like Facebook. Facebook is so easy. Communication happens so quickly, but so is learned helplessness. So is, this clingy, oh my God, I need you to hold my hand type of thing. And I'm not doing that. Facebook is way too easy to enable all of that BS. So when you actually go to my site, it means that you bought the book. So you did demonstrate some kind of investment in understanding my information, for one. Whether you read it or not, that's a different story. And then number two, you have to go through the process of understanding the password, login, right? And then how to navigate the site. So you're actually putting some thought into learning a new system that isn't just this automatic, low-hanging instant gratification like Facebook. And then you put some thought into writing out whatever it is that you have trouble with. That takes thought. My website and my book takes forethought. It takes wanting to learn something new because it is a new site for most people. Everyone's used to Facebook. They're used to social media, the instant stuff, right? But when you do something with my site, it takes thought. It takes some kind of preparation, which most people do not have on Facebook. So, so I don't tolerate the activists on my page. I don't. Because there are very, and we're going to have even more messed up people. So the more messed up our population is, the more mutated they are, the more there's going to be, mutated people in government as well. The government is a reflection of the people. You want your government to change? You people have to change. And playing this, CPS is across the board a child trafficking ring is completely way off your freaking rocker. You're not even understanding balance or understanding that, you know what, just because there's one bad seed in the bunch doesn't mean that everybody's a bad seed. That's called racism. That's called sexism. That's all the isms in our society when you paint one agency because of a group of people who happen to work in that agency. There are a lot of teachers out there that have been prosecuted or have allegations against them for rape. Does it mean that every single teacher that's in the school system is a rapist? No, there are a few people in different positions of leadership that are majorly messed up, and some of them are really crafty. I've been watching the courtroom drama of Jodi Arias. I don't know, I'm fascinated by that case. She's the one that murdered her boyfriend, Travis Alexander, and he was in PPL, which is prepaid legal. And I used to do prepaid legal. So that's probably why I have such an interest, because of the fact that it is an organization that I used to belong to. And it's an MLM for legal help. And, and it's also Mormon based. It's Mormon backed. And Jodi Arias, which is this really cute girl who completely, you probably could tell she's a little bit off, but she was using her sex and her feminine wiles to try to ensnare this kid who was a rising star in that agency. And I'll tell you what, this girl is smart. This girl, she thought she could outsmart the law by planning this murder and doing these specific things, and then totally denying that she was ever there and they had all these things. She made mistakes. But I'll tell you what, if you didn't know all the background of the case and you just talked to her, she would completely sell you into thinking that she never murdered her boyfriend. But they have all this evidence that she did. But just watching how she interacted with the jury, with her own lawyer, with the investigating officers, with the prosecutor, Juan Martinez, I'll tell you what, that's a mutation, but that's a mutation you got to watch out for. You think that I'm insane and I'm a cult leader, all of you people who think I'm trolls. She fooled a lot of people, but a lot of Travis's friends knew that something was off with her because she was very obsessive, very clingy, and was using sex as a way to get into his world. And he got caught up in that because of his mutations. So, I'm just listening to all of, her speaking, and man, it's insane. So if you ever go to YouTube, go look at some of the courtroom drama of Jodi Arias and how, and look at her story, because she's one of those that are very crafty in what she does. So there's going to be people in government that are very crafty, that speak very well. You would never know that they had a different life. And there's nothing you can do about that. You can only do what you're aware of. But we also, if you're aware of something that's going on in your community, or that this stuff happens in the population, you want to have somebody. You got to have some kind of faith, because you are not going to be able to take that kid out of that house that was being abused, right? I mean, this is for Ashley Reed. Do you want to be the one to go into a household and take a kid out of that household, or do you want somebody else to do it because you don't want to be involved? Because that's too much for any one person. We have to realize what our power is in our society, and where we have zero power, where we have to have some kind of faith. And we just take care of our own. We don't trigger the system if we are not prepared to deal with the system. If you don't want your kids vaccinated, don't have a kid at the hospital. If you don't want your kids vaccinated without you knowing it, then don't put them into public school where they're doing that. You don't want to be subject to the terms and conditions of how your kid is raised, then you raise your kid. You don't give it to the system to be raised. This is where the doublespeak and the whole, my kid's vaccine injured and I blame everybody but myself, really, I get tired of it. There are ways to be able to have control over your kid 100%. And that means that, you have to be home for your child. It means that you actually have to think about how you're going to afford that child. Okay? So, if you think that a one-income household is not enough and you need a husband, then go get married and be that one person at home while the other person's in working out there in the world. Or you find a way to work from home if you're a single mom. But, this indignation about the system destroyed, the medical system destroyed my kid. Yeah, they might have. But hey, now you know how the system works. Now we can do something about it. There is recourse. We have enough resources where we don't have to trigger the system to disempower us. So anyways, so I am not involved with this CPS, anti-CPS, the human trafficking. You know what happens? Watch your kids, watch your daughters, get your boys healthy. I've been posting some stuff about things that happen, in the population with high school boys that are out of control and they impregnate their girlfriends and then go insane because they don't want to have to deal with a kid for the rest of their life. Because they know as soon as that kid is born, child support's triggered. CPS will be triggered because somebody is going to have to make sure that kid's going to be in good hands because it's to a teenager, okay? Other things in the system are going to be triggered. And it's a lot of money, first of all, to raise a kid, for one. And number two, if you don't want to be that, if you don't want to be with the mother, then how much money is you as a male is going to have to dole out for child support? It's in the tens of thousands of dollars. It's a lot of money to pay to the state to take care of a kid because you don't want to take care of it. And that kid knew it, and that's why he murdered his not saying it's a good thing, but this is going to be the mentality. This is going to be the mentality of mutated people knowing exactly what they're up against and what they're dealing with. And we've got to give these kids an opportunity to not cave into their baser instincts, their biochemistry. And that's why, public school is a tinderbox of kids that will be triggering the system at a very early age. So I advocate homeschooling if you don't want to have your kid be a statistic in the system. I advocate that 100%. I advocate everybody having midwifery in America. That's what I advocate. I advocate people making sure that they have enough money that they can support and raise this kid so they can be around for their kids, so they don't give their kid to the system and then bitch about why the system did this or that and their kid now is injured. But you absolve yourself of any responsibility because you didn't think far ahead enough to know, can you handle, and afford a kid without giving it to somebody else to take care of. So, and I don't want a kid. Okay. And people have said, oh, Jilly doesn't want a kid because she can't have kids. Because it's, I thought about having a kid, way back when when I was, I don't know, because it was a formula. It was something that that was told that I had to do, or not had, but that was appropriate. And it was like everybody else, my kids, the sisters were having kids. Everybody around me was having kids. Why am I not having kids? Oh, I should go have a kid. But it never stuck. I never put myself in a position to raise a child, to have a kid, for a lot of reasons. some which I probably couldn't have articulated back then. Now I know why. It was never meant for me. Because if I had a kid, then I wouldn't be doing this protocol. I wouldn't have created this and got the feedback and had the time to spend. People who have kids don't have room for anything else except for whatever's out there in the system. That's mainstream. When you have kids, it's very difficult to create something from scratch. It's very difficult to stick your neck out because your kids are going to be used as a weapon against you. The fact that I don't have kids is a blessing to all of you who do have kids. So that way, I'm the one that sticks my neck out. They're not going to use my child against me. They tried to use my dog against me, but I already met the Humane Society warden or whoever, and they know who I am, and they know that Sugar is doing great. I'm not just feeding her cabbage. She gets, her regular dog food, and she gets the cabbage mixed in with some people food. So that way, because she doesn't love the cabbage, right off the bat. She does sometimes. She'll drink it on its own, or she'll mix it in with the food, and I'll put some cheese on it. Okay, so you should be happy, those of you that have kids. The reason why I don't have kids, because the reason why I did this protocol is because I didn't have kids to distract me, and I don't have the kids for them to use as a weapon against me. But if I ever do get pregnant, be sure as hell that I'm going to do it in the way that I'm suggesting, because I don't want to put my kid in a position where they're getting jabbed. Then I got to go and take care of that mess. Not say I couldn't. Hey, if my kid did get vaccinated, I will make sure that my kid will recover from that initial mutation. Yeah, they'll be immune from that disease, but they also will suffer a hit, which means that I got to go and fix that. So yeah, there's always recourse if the system does something to your child. It's not the end all be all if you had to use steroid cream to appease CPS workers. It's not the end of the world that your kid gets vaccinated if they space them out. It's not the end of the world. Because if you're doing Jilly juice and you can't afford to homeschool, and you can't afford to be at home, you can't afford this or that, then, you have Jilly juice, you can have the best of all the worlds. I survived all the military vaccines, and I got 2 rounds of them because I re-enlisted at one point. Okay? I got all my childhood vaccines back in the 80s. They weren't as nearly as much as they are today, but then I got the extra set in the military. Okay, so, if I can survive all of that, but yeah, if you can survive the vaccines as a baby, then you sure as hell can recover from the mutations from that initial exposure. So I'm just saying to people, do not throw away the baby with the bathwater because of your axe to grind with the government, because you're pissed off that your life is the way it is because of your dealings with the system. It's time now we start repairing the damage from the past. It's time now we start understanding how the world works and doing everything we can not to be a victim of somebody else's mutations. It's time now we actually take personal accountability for ourselves, our health, and our children's health, and our own families. And if you don't want that responsibility, then you have no room to bitch. None. So there you go. That's my diatribe for the day. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.